This is a picture of a rat, and this is a biblically accurate angel. The astute among you might have realized it's the same picture. Because today, in Total War Warhammer 3, we will be making Quick Headtaker into the God Rat. Through balanced and sane mechanics, we aim to make Quick literally unkillable by anything in the game with no mods. Apart from the Cheese mod, of course. And we need to summon the God Rat before the max difficulty endgame crisis spawns, which will send 80 trillion meth addicts at our capital, Carrick 8 Squeaks, which every other faction in the game is gunning to take from us. This will be a super easy task once we have the God Rat himself. Unfortunately, however, we don't start with the God Rat. Instead, we start with one of the worst armies in the game. A bunch of slave rats cosplaying as functional units, one catapult, two slightly good rats, and the slowest, fattest cheese peddler with no magic, mount, or strong abilities. Queek Headlicker. But thankfully, we also start with Phil. Phil is a chieftain, and this silly little guy is disappointingly bad at fighting anything other than your mum until he gets his mount, a bigger and sillier rat. But that's not why we need Phil. See, at level 10, Phil can get the perk Suspiciously Loyal. This gives the leader of the army, Quick Headgiver, 5% ward save. That's 5% flat damage resistance per Phil in our army. But we can only get one Phil per barracks, unless the leader of your army is the infamous Quackhead Sucker, who starts the game with +2 Phil capacity. Then we keep farming Phils on our way to Carrick 8 Squeaks, which is a simple 14-minute battle when you play above normal difficulty. We are then rewarded with definitely not radioactive armor, which gives another 10% ward save. Thus, with our first major objective done with 30% ward save, or 30% damage resistance, 140 armor, and a good collection of fields. Now, I know what you're thinking. This isn't schizophrenic enough for a Yolocat video. Basement dwellers, bring out the chart. This is a chart of faction leaders or legendary lords. These are the characters you can play as in Total War Warhammer 3, and when you defeat one of them, they have a special trait that adds permanent bonuses to your character. Now, not a single legendary lord in the game will give you ward save, which again is flat damage resistance, but many will give you specific damage resistances like melee, missile, or magic, coupled with plenty of other cool stuff. And I mapped out which characters would benefit Quelch Headripper becoming god with my stupid, idiot, brain dead Twitch viewers. I wanted to start by heading south for 10% physical resistance, 10% campaign movement speed, and maybe some Vanguard deployment. But scouting south early Wazag the Great Green Prophet was kill.
Are you not embarrassed? This is really embarrassing.
So this trait was permanently gone. Reassessing the chart, heading to the east, then up into the Empire was the next best option. Firstly, I wanted the 12% speed from Tretch, as Queckle never gets a mount, and the idea of killing Helman Gorst and all of Kislev for poison, fire and ice attacks sounded kinda bowler. This path we would also end up around here before the endgame crisis, so we could grab the two most powerful items in the game. But much on those later. Right now, I'm more focused on Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus is an action-packed strategy game played from your mobile phone. So if you want to purge heretics on the go, now is the time to get started. With over 120 champions from 21 factions within the Warhammer 40,000 universe, these grimdark battles can be enjoyed by everyone. across several different game modes, including PvE campaigns, PvP, live events, guild raids, and much more. Tacticus constantly introduces new fresh content, and there's more champions on the way, like Captain Cyrus of the Blood Ravens chapter. As Tacticus is celebrating Dawn of War 4, you will be able to command Cyrus in their own recreation of The Last Stand, starting on the 24th of May. On top of that, the Necrons are getting even stronger. The Chronomancer Thothmech will soon show up, and I'll be honest, when a Necron with the title The Harbinger of Eternity shows up, I might just have to swap factions. Tacticus is also bringing the first ever Loyalist Primarch, Lionel Johnson, to the game as a new raid boss, and I plan to show him who's the real boss. You can too, by scanning the QR code or clicking the link in the description below. Thanks to Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus for sponsoring the video. Solidifying my capital that was just up the road from the endgame skeleton apocalypse, we marched... never eat soggy wheat bix. We marched eat, finding our first target, Imric, an elf riding a dragon, who would give us a bonus to large. Cosplaying as an elf riding a large dragon would get me a lot of money on the internet, but doing my best Robert Baratheon impression, we also got 25% fire resistance. That seems pretty random and surely will never have an impact in this video. Anyway, I wanted to cartwheel 1 billion times to the north, but much like a piranha mukbanging my nutsack, my southern border was getting tickled by the worst threesome I've ever seen, and I've seen two girls. Cut that from the script. Krokkar, Queen Khalida, and Thorgrim Ironbrow, all three were smashing booties right on my territory. Some absolute anarchy later, and both the perks we wanted were ours. And the only woman in this region of the map was taken out, and I had traded the territory I'd taken from them back to them for peace agreements. We all know this will bite me in the bum later on, but the longer I linger on pointless wars, the less perks I would get, as every turn more and more factions are wiped out. And I wanted my Nike Jordans from Tretch, who I couldn't find. Skarsnik, however, found us. He's an angry goblin whose life goal is to take the dwarven city of Carragate Peaks. Oh wait, I own that. I knew someone would have the flaps to try and take my beloved 8 squeaks from me. So I had a master assassin camp waiting for this very moment. These type of rats have a really high ambush chance, and Skarsnik, like a pit bull seeing a bus full of toddlers, leapt right into it. This means Sneakbite the Third got Skarsnik's legendary defeat trait, better ambush chance. Gosh, I much love when plan, scheme, thing comes together, yes? Whew, that got away from me for a second. I'm gonna tick him off the chart. Same as Drazov the Ashen, who was killed by Lightning McCheese. I know Queef didn't kill him, but I think it's fun to look at the chart at the end and see how the kill list ended up for me. Maybe some of you can play along at home and see how the chart goes for you. And by home I mean the basement. Oh, YOLO! Please stop burping, my frail ears can't handle it. Let me see the sun. Wow, can you keep it down? I'm trying to find Tretch Raventail, an elusive rat but not unfindable for the god rat, who by turn 44 had 73% ward save. A ridiculous amount for this early in the game, and on a character who excelled in the thick of battle. We were able to comfortably send him into the fray and begin to pray for our opponents. Sure, he wasn't unkillable and they could still hurt him, but remember, we had a higher chance of finding magical items. One of those was our new sword, Death Singer. A magical sword that heals Crumplefoot Long at the cost of being weak to fire, to the tune of 25%. We were having some pretty good results already, and those results were 12% faster. Thanks, Tretch. You can have some of your territory back, not the Skaven iconic location Crookback Mountain. I'll keep that. And when the world bears witness to the God Rat, you'll remember this moment and you'll thank me. Wow, that was getting away from me for a second. Hey, moving on. Into the mountains! We missed out on Helm and Gor's poison attacks, but we have 3 promising options. Ungrim, Iron Fist, Azag, the Slaughterer, and Grimgore, Ironhide. Any of these would help Quelch Humdinkle become violently unkillable. And lucky for us, Ungrim and Azag had been fighting each other to the point of a stalemate here in the mountains. Hopefully this doesn't expose them to a violent and slightly unstable rat with some cool new shoes. 2 more very helpful perks ticked off, and flexing on Ungrim we were the real ward save hero was pretty bowler. What wasn't bowler was Throt the Unclean and his army of demons had killed all of Kislev, while some demon I've never seen in the game only on the character selection menu were about to kill Greasy Greasus, who had been funneling me good trade agreements this whole game. Thus I had to enter a pointless war against this sentient worm and a giant furry. Are centaurs furries?
Why are you the way that you are?
All the while I had to chase down Throt for the 10% HP bonus, which Carl Franz was right on the cusp of taking away from me. Why does Carl always try to ruin every campaign? Why are you playing Rats, not Reichland? Because I've spoken to a woman before. This was bad, but thankfully I matched my level of schizophrenia to deal with this situation of killing Carl so I could kill Throt, Albul the Undefeated, Archeon the Everchosen, while only being at war with Carl. Easy peasy. I hear you dribble. Don't worry, the tranquilizer only lasts 54 hours. By not only killing those people, but taking their territory and trading it back to them in a specific order that doesn't cook their defensive alliance, we can all be buddies while hating Carl and giving Creamhead Topper these 3 helpful buffs. And Carl's, I guess. Unfortunately, however, it wasn't that easy, as Archeon, the champion of chaos, ran away at the first sight of a slightly rotund rat. You hate to see it. Almost as much as I hate Carl Franz. And we ambushed Carl Franz, chat. Gas it up. W's in the chat. I hate Carl Franz with a burning passion. This was a 56% chance to get this guy. I believe in the 56% chance every time. From here, we could enter the ocean and sail to the Elven Isles of Ulthuan, at the top of which is a special location where only an Elven faction can forge the Sword of Cain. Ah! One of the best items in the game. That will be a huge power spike and is one of the only ways to make creep unbreakable. In Totaling War 3, your characters all have morale. Think of you hanging out with your homies. Your morale will be pretty high. Now, think of that same scenario, but a woman comes up and speaks to you. Oh, I know, scary stuff. You'll crumble and run away immediately. This is the same for Crumbumpius Hedulator. He might be nearly unkillable, but if he's the only rat left on the battlefield, he'll run away and lose the battle. Doesn't sound much like a god rat to me, but this can be solved with the Sword of Cain, or a random drop item called the Helm of Draska. Oh, this is a pure random drop. So the Sword of Cain is surely easier to get. But there's one problem. No one has made it. I've never played a match of Total War Warhammer 3 where the sword hasn't been forged. But the one time I'm gunning for it, the AI just won't construct the building, and only elves can build it. I'm a rat with cool shoes, and now a cool crown. The Nemesis Crown. Another key item on our list that will give us a huge buff in combat. Massive area of effect damage, melting anyone who gets near Queckle. But as a trade-off, it'll make the entire world hate us. But that won't matter once we rule them like gods.
Angry gods.
We make our way back through the Empire, leveling up the Nemesis Crown. And each level up made Krem harder to kill and improved the AoE damage he could do. These upgrades would be more important than ever, as we scouted out the Sword of Cain and confirmed the AI was just not doing anything with it. I've never seen this before. In fact, I've never seen some of these random factions survive. And even crazier things like Cloistra Diaphin was one of the strongest factions in the world instead of normally sucking and being killed at the start of the game. But now her and her demon boyfriend had taken the donut? Things were pretty weird, but as long as I could get Quack Headbobble back before the skeleton endgame the zombie apocalypse had started. As my previous friend Gorman House tried to kill me and take my cheese. A lot of the cheese we had were at the iconic rat locations Carrick 8 Squeaks and Brokeback Mountain, but there was one more important Skaven location, Skaven Blight. And if you've seen my last video, you know I couldn't sit by and let Bella Snore disrespect us rats by owning it. Thus, I sent Quelch to take it back with his max level Nemesis Crown, crazy levels of ward save, and collection of perks. Truly a great test of power. Could you call yourself the God Rat if you couldn't defend the most Skaven location in the game? To prove if this were true, and we were on the righteous path of rat godhood, once he breached the gates, I took my hands off the keyboard and let Queckle take the wheel. Allegedly 800 kills without playing the game was a good sign we were on the right path. My Twitch chat disagreed as they talked smack on my economy while watching me field 20 armies on 4 fronts. And by 4 fronts I mean every direction in the game. The negative relation bonus to the Nemesis Crown is fully working in the current patch of the game, if anyone was wondering. Anyway, still, no one had built the Sword of Cain, and we were unlucky with getting the one random item that would give Quickle Unbreakable, but there was still time. The Skeleton Apocalypse spawned on my lawn and made me enemies with Khemri, one of the biggest factions in the game. We had the damage, we had the ward save, but Belch Head Foamer could still rout because we never got the Unbreakable perk. You might think we were boned. Fighting against 80 trillion Sylvanas Simps was a joyful experience, as with more chieftains joining the army, QWERTY was fully unkillable. A rounding success for our goal to make the God Rat when we were lucky enough to get a siege battle, in which my chieftains could stay safe at the back of the map and Queen could take all the attention. Or a map where our armies could hide out of line of sight. If they were in a forest, the enemy would come looking for them, but if I could hide them over a slight hillside, the skeleton army would only attack Queef, circumventing our unbreakable problem. But this wasn't every battle. If I couldn't hide the army, the hordes of skeletons would just walk slightly faster past Quench, and I would have to play out the battle essentially without a legendary lord. Or until he caught up. What a deranged world I'd found myself in, where I had essentially created the immortal snail problem, but for the enemy. Can you kill my 15 Kazakhstani MMA fighters, 2 rats driving a go-kart, and a mad scientist before the unkillable Doom creature walks towards you? And your only counter to him is a crusty pair of Nike Jordans. This isn't the image of the God Rat I had in my head, but by all accounts of video game theory crafting, it was working. Especially in this battle here, where we didn't get the ambush, forcing us to fight 4 endgame crisis armies at once. A small mound in the corner let me hide my army for most of the match, and creepy Heimerdinger could camp the reinforcement point, racking up nearly 2,000 kills and 235,825 damage. Potentially the most damage Quelch has ever done in the history of Total War Warhammer, excluding that one night me and him went drinking in Bali. I can never look at a toilet the same. Anyway, we got Cetra's terrible defeat trait and smoked him a few more times, adding to his tally on the chart. We had also taken the Black Pyramid, which when completed would get us more spell resistance. And Queefy taking out the max setting endgame Crisis Doom stacks, as my extra armies that had been surrounding his territory in preparation were able to wipe it out quicker than you can say, "Please YOLO, let me out of the basement." And by quick I mean, I suffered the headache of Khemri having hidden territory in the Empire, forcing me to play cat and mouse with Karl Franz again, just like last video. Why does this keep happening? I camped Cetra at his final location, while Crunch began to sail around the ocean fighting pirates to keep the Nemesis crown. But, inevitably, Kresh Kalir's ultimate power was too much for a frail congregation of bones. And we achieved our short victory, long, and ultimate campaign victory. But, we didn't stop there. In the chaos of fighting against zombies, the Empire, demons, rats, and everyone betraying me, I'd almost completed the dominating campaign victory. Why not, I thought? Crumple Humpdonger can't die. I can play a little bit longer. A couple turns longer, in fact. And when Lightning McCheese raided some random French town in the desert, we got the extremely random, low chance roll of the one item in the game besides the Sword of Cain that the elves still didn't make. Stuff 'em, I'm vermintiding it. The Helm of Draskar. Peak Qued Taker was now unbreakable. And as he entered France, I could safely retreat every unit while they still gave him the now 93% ward save, and his morale would not be affected. The God Rat could not take damage, melt anyone who gets close to him, could not break and retreat, healed himself, and could out-duel anyone in the game. There was nothing in the game that could functionally stop the strongest rat in the world, the God Rat, Queek Headtaker. And thus we achieved the dominating campaign victory. Owned this entire section of the world while everyone hated us, and collected an awesome list of buffs. This is the final shot of the chart. This was a fun playthrough, and I'd recommend you try it at home with your favorite lord. Plan out what traits you want and see how strong you can make your character. Hopefully stronger than Throt, as next time we'll be doing Total War Warhammer 3 Randomizer with the GOAT himself. But until then, thank you for watching. Join my Discord, follow me on Twitch, and shout out to my Twitch subscribers and YouTube members. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thanks to Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus for sponsoring the video.